Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're looking at something pretty challenging in the IT world right now. It's this balancing act, really. How do you give small and medium businesses, SMBs, that top-level, enterprise-grade cybersecurity without, you know, breaking their bank? Or for the managed service providers, the MSPs, without completely wiping out their own margins?
Yeah, it's a real tightrope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our sources, they really highlight this core tension. You've got an SMB, maybe, what, 50 employees?
Could be even smaller sometimes.
Right. And they're facing the exact same sophisticated threats, like ransomware, that a huge Fortune 500 company deals with.
The attackers don't really discriminate based on size anymore, not when the vulnerabilities are there.
But that small company, they just don't have the specialized security team sitting in-house or the, frankly, multi-million-dollar budget to fight back effectively.
Not even close.
So our mission today, really, is to dig into the strategies, both technical and business, that are finally starting to bridge this huge gap. How do we make top-tier protection accessible and, yeah, affordable for everyone involved?
And it's definitely a necessary deep dive. The scale of the threat isn't really up for debate anymore. We've got data specifically from the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report.
That's always a big one.
It is, and it shows over 40% of all cybersecurity breaches are now hitting these smaller businesses specifically.
40%, wow.
Yeah, attackers kind of see them as the easier targets, maybe think of it as low-hanging fruit, all the valuable data, but often much weaker defenses.
So why have the defenses been weaker historically? What were the barriers?
Well, traditionally, the whole security model was just prohibitively expensive. It wasn't just the high license costs for all the different point solutions you needed.
Like one tool for the laptops, another for the network firewall, another for cloud stuff.
Exactly. You needed separate tools for endpoint, network, cloud, but the real barrier often was the need for specialized staff, security analysts, engineers, people who know how to actually configure, monitor, and respond to alerts from those systems.
And that kind of dedicated headcount, just completely out of reach for most SMBs.
Pretty much, yeah, for 99% of them.
Okay, so that leads to maybe a false sense of security then.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of SMBs probably think, okay, we put some antivirus, maybe
Yeah.
an EDR endpoint detection and response on our computers. We're good.
And that assumption, that's precisely the critical failure point. That's why we're having this conversation. Our research, what we're seeing is that just relying on those endpoint tools leaves, well, a shocking amount of the actual attack surface completely exposed.
How much are we talking?
We're talking around 70% of the business essentially being invisible to the MSP or the internal IT if they're only looking at the endpoints.
70%. Okay, hold on. That's not a gap. That's a massive blind spot.
It absolutely is. Think about it. The old idea of a perimeter, like a castle wall, it's just gone. The firewall isn't the only door anymore.
So what's in that 70% then? Where are the attacks coming from, if not just the endpoint?
It's all the other ways business gets done now. It's the cloud applications, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace. It's email accounts, identity systems like Okta or Entra ID, even IoT devices on the network.
So if you only secure the laptop.
Right. The attacker just logs in through a compromised cloud account because your EDR tool, well, it can't see that cloud login attempt. It doesn't see that weird email forwarding rule somebody set up. It's blind to it.
That must be incredibly inefficient for the MSP, too, trying to manage all this.
Yeah.
Juggling, like 5 different security dashboards, dealing with 5 vendors, 5 bills.
Oh, definitely.
All while knowing you're only really seeing 30% of the picture. Sounds exhausting and, frankly, unsustainable.
It is, which is exactly why these siloed point solutions, they're failing the MSP's business model just as much as they're failing the client's actual security. They need one place to see everything.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. If the core problem is this huge 70% visibility chasm and just looking at endpoints isn't enough, how do we close that gap? Especially without telling the SMB they need to hire that, 6-figure security analyst they can't afford.
The key is unifying all those different signals. And that brings us to the core technology making this possible now. Open extended detection and response platforms. OpenXDR.
OpenXDR. Okay, break that down. What does it actually do?
Think of it less like another separate tool and more like a central intelligence hub, or maybe a brain. Its main job is to pull together all those different threat signals from the endpoint, the network, the cloud, email, identity, and then correlate them.
Correlate meaning connect the dots.
Exactly. Connect the dots into one single manageable picture, like having one really smart security guard who can watch the front door, the back door, and the roof hatch all at the same time, and understand when something shady involves all three.
Okay, that visual helps. So you mentioned the data sources it pulls from. endpoints, networks.
Yep. Endpoints, so your EDR data, networks, and firewalls. Critically, cloud and SaaS apps like M365 and Google Workspace, identity systems, who's logging in from where, and email security tools as well.
But wait, if you're pulling in more data from all these sources, doesn't that risk just creating like 5 times the noise? One analyst just get overwhelmed with alerts.
See, that's the beauty of the correlation engine. That's the exact problem it's designed to solve. The platform automatically connects related low-level alerts. So instead of an analyst seeing, 5 separate little flags, a weird login here, a strange file access there, someone clicking link over there.
Which might get ignored individually.
Right. The OpenXDR platform ties them together automatically and says, hold on, this is one incident. This specific user account looks compromised, and they're starting to move around the network. It bubbles up the real threat.
So, much earlier detection and way less noise fatigue for the analysts.
Drastically less noise, which means faster, more accurate response.
Now, you emphasized OpenXDR. Why is that open part so important, especially thinking about SMBs and their MSPs?
The open is really key for affordability and practicality. Unlike older sort of closed systems, maybe from a single vendor, that often forced you to rip out everything else.
Right, rip and replace, which nobody wants to do.
Exactly. OpenXDR is specifically designed to integrate with the tools a client might already have and trust. If they've already invested in a good firewall or a particular EDR tool, the OpenXDR platform can ingest that data, analyze it, and make it part of the bigger picture.
So it leverages existing investments. That avoids forcing the client to buy everything all over again from one vendor.
Precisely. It reduces that license duplication issue and respects what the client already owns, which is obviously much more palatable for an SMB budget.
Okay, this makes sense. This shift from juggling separate tools to managing unified signals from an open XDR platform. It brings us right to the affordability question for the MSP. The tech sounds right, but the MSP still has to make this work financially right, protect their own margins.
Absolutely. This is where the business strategy has to perfectly align with the technology. The fundamental idea is scaling the protection without scaling the manual labor costs linearly.
Okay, how? What features enable that?
Our sources point to a few key things. First and foremost is sophisticated multi-tenancy.
Multi-tenancy. Explain how that helps the MSP's bottom line directly.
Okay, so multi-tenancy means the MSP can manage potentially hundreds of different clients, all from within that single open XDR dashboard using shared backend infrastructure.
So they aren't setting up a whole separate server instance or database for every single client.
Correct. They share the core platform costs across their entire client base. One analyst can efficiently monitor many clients. This ability to manage more clients without proportionally increasing staff or infrastructure, that's the engine that drives profitability and scalability for the MSP. It's nonlinear scaling.
That operational efficiency sounds critical. You also mentioned earlier the huge cost of needing dedicated security analysts.
Hey.
How does this model address that human capital piece for the SMB client?
That's where automation and this idea of fractional expertise really comes into play. The OpenXDR platform itself, with its automation, handles the vast majority, maybe 95% of the initial monitoring and response actions.
Like what kind of actions?
Things like automatically isolating a laptop that gets infected,
Yeah.
or blocking communication with a known malicious website or IP address, basic, rapid containment.
Okay, so the platform does the immediate grunt work.
Right. And that highly paid, specialized human expert, the security analyst, the human in the loop, they only need to get involved for the really critical, complex escalations that the automation can't or shouldn't handle alone.
So let me see if I get this. The SMB client avoids paying that, say, $150,000 salary for a full-time analyst they don't need 24/7.
Exactly.
Instead, through the MSP and the OpenXDR platform, they're essentially paying for just maybe 5 or 10 minutes of that top-tier analyst's time, but only when a serious incident actually requires it.
That's it, precisely. It's a profound shift in how security expertise is delivered and consumed. It makes it accessible.
And that operational efficiency, that fractional use of experts, that's what allows the MSP to move away from those big, scary upfront license fees.
Yeah, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, MSPs can now offer much more flexible pricing models that actually fit SMB budgets. Think per user or per endpoint monthly fees.
Bundled services, maybe?
Bundled services or tiered packages are very common. A basic tier, an advanced one, a premium one, depending on the client's needs and budget maturity.
And maybe even pricing based on the value delivered.
That's the most strategic approach, value-based pricing, where the cost is explicitly tied to outcomes like demonstrable risk reduction or meeting specific compliance mandates. It turns advanced security into a predictable, manageable operating expense for the SMB, not a capital expenditure shock.
Okay, we've got the tech, we've got the MSP business model, but now the final hurdle, selling this. An MSP calls up their clients, starts throwing around OpenXDR correlation playbooks and multi-tenant architecture.
Haha, yeah, eyes glaze over pretty quick.
Right. SMB owners, they don't care about the acronyms. They care about business outcomes.
Yeah.
How do you translate this into something they value?
You hit it right there. The sources we looked at are very clear on this. MSPs have to frame the value around concepts that resonate with any business owner. Usually it boils down to three pillars: risk reduction, business continuity, and trust.
Okay, so risk reduction. That's showing how this advanced monitoring actually lowers the chances of getting hit by ransomware
Yeah.
or falling victim to phishing, right?
Exactly, making that tangible. Then business continuity is about minimizing the damage if something does happen. Faster detection and response means less downtime, less data loss, getting back to business quicker.
Makes sense. And trust. How does that fit in?
Well, demonstrating that you, as an SMB, have enterprise-grade security provided by your MSP. That builds confidence. It reassures your customers, your partners, your supply chain that you're a safe company to do business with. It can even be a competitive advantage.
And speaking of requirements,
Yep.
the compliance angle must be huge here too.
Oh, absolutely massive. You really can't understate its power as a driver. For many SMBs, meeting compliance standards isn't optional, it's existential.
Like what kind of standards are we talking about?
Depending on their industry and location, things like NIST CSF, HIPAA for healthcare data, GDPR for European operations, CMMC if they're anywhere in the defense supply chain, NIS2, which is also big in Europe, Australia's Essential 8. The list goes on.
And failing those isn't just about potential fines anymore, is it?
Not at all. Increasingly, it's about simply being allowed to do business. You need to pass that vendor security assessment just to get the contract with a larger enterprise client. They won't even talk to you if you can't prove your security posture.
Wow. Okay, so this flips the script. Security isn't just a cost center you have to grudgingly pay for.
Exactly. It becomes a business enabler. It allows these SMBs to compete for and win contracts they might otherwise be completely locked out of.
But they need proof, right? You can't just say you're compliant.
Correct. That's why clear reporting is non-negotiable. The MSP has to provide what some sources call proof of value dashboards.
Proof of value dashboards, I like that.
Yeah, these reports make those invisible threats and the protection against them tangible for the client. They show, month over month, how the security posture is improving, how threats were blocked. It justifies the ongoing investment and makes the value crystal clear.
Okay, so let's recap. We've established the threat to SMBs is very real. It's enterprise level. Relying only on endpoint security leaves that huge, dangerous 70% blind spot.
Yep, completely insufficient on its own.
The technological answer is OpenXDR, unifying signals from everywhere. And the business answer for the MSP is leveraging multi-tenancy, automation, and fractional expertise to make it affordable and scalable.
That's the core takeaway for you, the listener. For way too long, SMBs basically had to accept being underprotected, being the easy targets because the good stuff was too expensive. But now, enterprise-grade cybersecurity is within reach. It happens when you get these three things working together: unifying all the important data sources with OpenXDR, heavily automating the response, and having MSPs offer flexible, smartly priced packages.
So what does this all mean? It means that top-tier, comprehensive security isn't just a luxury for the giants anymore. It's becoming the new, accessible standard. And really, it's driven by the efficiency that comes from unified platforms and these smarter, scalable MSP service models. For any MSP looking to actually grow, build real trust, and stay competitive, offering the kind of full-spectrum coverage, it's pretty much becoming table stakes.
Definitely. And we talked a lot about how automation and multi-tenancy make things affordable, especially with things like compliance reporting. So here's something to think about. If generating those complex compliance reports for EPA, CMMC, whatever it is, becomes largely automatic and super fast because the platform does most of the work, what else could that speed and efficiency unlock for an SMB? Think beyond just avoiding fines. Could they use that proven, documented, rapidly generated security posture as an offensive tool? Could they use it to aggressively go after and win those lucrative contracts that demand high security standards, essentially turning their security investment into a direct revenue generator?